If you liked the video, feel free to subscribe. It would really help the channel. Thanks for watching. Thanks for stopping by. This video is going over the results of the RTT I went to on January 18th, 2025. I'm sorry if I sound a little off in this one, because I'm sick once again. The joys and the perks of many children in the house. I brought my Adeptus Custodes Solar Spearhead list, and two of our crew members came as well. Laura, aka Blushing Noise Marine, and Cody, aka Mittens. My first game went good. Games 2 and Games 3, not so much. So let's talk about it. This was a list that I brought to the RTT. It was a Solar Spearhead list. I named it Threat Overload. It came to 1,995 points. My Warlord was the Blade Champion with the Adamantine Talisman. The only other character in the list was a Telemon Heavy Dreadnought with the Augury Uplink, and I had the Arachna Storm Cannon and a Telemon Fist Weapon. For other datasheets, we had 5 Custodian Wardens. They all had the Guardian Spears with 1 Vexilla in the group, 3 Venerable Dreadnoughts with the Multi-Meltas in the combat weapon, 2 Galatus Dreadnoughts, 2 Caladius tanks with the Arachna's Heavy Blaze Cannon, a unit of 4 Witchseekers, and finally 2 units of 4 Prosecutors. Came to 1,995 points. Now let's talk about these games. Game 1, I drew the 1,000 Suns. We had the Sweeping Engagement Deployment, Rapid Escalation as the mission rule, and the primary mission was Supply Drop. The score ended up being 74-44 for a win for the Custodes. The game was pretty close until turn 3 when I was able to close the gap with the Dreadnoughts. The 1,000 Suns had the typical Magnus, Vortex Beasts, and Sorcerers attached to Rubrics list. I was fortunate that Supply Drop had gotten rid of the middle objective. The tanks did work, killing the Vortex Beast quite easily, and Magnus was brought down by a combination of Dreadnoughts and tanks. The smaller 5-man Rubrics had trouble dealing with the Dreadnoughts once I caught them in melee. I was able to punch them out and every failed save was killing them, so I was able to mop them up once I made contact with them. Around turn 2, turn 3, I had put the Blade Champions and the Wardens on the center objective. Then I popped that Fort Feel No Pain in the next shooting phase of the 1,000 Suns, and it bore the brunt of the last counterattack they was able to muster. By turn 4, the game was all but won. The 1,000 Suns player was not new to the game. He was a great opponent. Another player that was just happy to get out and play the game. A few more games though, he will be a tough opponent. He was writing down notes every game. I love to see it. He was very dedicated to getting better with the faction. So next time I play him, it'll be much tougher. So with a win with game 1 and in the top 5 points, that got me a date with the Greater Demons. Game 2, Custodes versus the Chaos Daemons. The deployment was Search and Destroy, mission rule, Stalwarts, primary mission, Scorched Earth. The score ended up being 42-93 for a loss for my Solar Spearhead Custodes. This was the battle of the 4-ups. Sadly, I was not the winner this time. I did not want it enough apparently. It was the store owner that I ended up playing against. We had an odd number of players. Instead of someone having to sit out for a buy-in, he joined in. He's a super great guy. I really enjoy talking to him. He knows a lot about Warhammer and just the business side of things. So it was a great time talking to him as I played the game. Even though he pounded my Dreadnoughts into the ground. We had a great time just talking about Warhammer. So what happened during the game? We don't blame the dice, but we both noticed my 4+s were not on point. Instead of getting angry or annoyed, I laughed at the terrible odds and just made up some stories of what was going on, just how my Custodes were being ripped apart. Which makes it less awkward for your opponent. They can play the game guilt-free as they stomp your army into the ground or even join in on the fun. So long story short, he had 4 Greater Demons that my Dreads and tanks could just not kill fast enough. It was my first game of 10th versus Demons. No excuses there. It was just an army that I was not used to, but I had never fought it before either. So this game was really interesting to me, win or lose. It is my job to know these armies if I want to give good advice on the Custodes and how to play against these armies. The thing that got me and really won the game for him was the Blood Crushers. Now these really caught me off guard. Turn 1, I moved a Venerable Dreadnought onto the closest no man's land objective with a Galatus and Telemon close by. He charges the Venerable Dreadnought with his 6 Skull Crushers attached to a Skullmaster. I heroic with a Galatus, and then Chris, the store owner there, rolls a perfect 10 mortals to kill the Galatus with their charge ability, and then proceeds to chop up the Venerable. I shoot 1 tank into those Blood Crushers, and then charge it with 2 Venerable Dreadnoughts into those Blood Crushers as well in the charge phase. He rolls hot, I kill 3, and I lose a Dreadnought in return. His next turn, since he now owns 2 objectives in no man's land, those 6-inch deep strikes start raining demons down on me. And that was pretty much the end. It's a great game for my opponent. I just was not able to get out and kill enough of these demons quick enough to start pressuring and denying these objectives and stopping them from scoring so many points. Still, a great game. I had a lot of fun. My first game against the Chaos Daemons in 10th. Game 3 was yet again Adeptus Custodes versus Chaos Daemons. It was a Legion of Access this time instead of the Index Chaos Daemons. Deployment was Crucible of Battle, mission rule, rapid escalation, with the primary mission being Purge the Foe. This ended up being a 58-73 loss for my Custodes. Legion of Access Demons was a brutal matchup. If I had the Talons of the Emperor 3 Wardens build, it may not have been so bad, but with Dreadnoughts, it was ugly. It turns out 6 Fiends with 5 attacks each, damage 2, devastating wounds, rerolling hits and wounds, tears our smaller 10 wound Dreadnoughts apart. The Galatas -1 to wound made absolutely no difference in this one. And like the Blood Crushers, 4 wounds per Fiend is terrible for the Dreadnoughts. The Chaos Daemons list was very fine-tuned, and the player was very good and knew his army well. He was a great opponent. I do believe he is part of a team from the local area, because we did have to travel out of our local area to get to this tournament. He also had a great way to nullify the Dreadnoughts, so he could use the Gambit Detachment rule to forego fights first to reroll his hits and wounds with those Fiends. There is a strat to turn wounds to mortal wounds and put those on another unit in your army, and when I attacked his Fiends, he used that stratagem, and they had a character attached to some Demonettes, I do believe, that had a 4-up Feel No Pain to the unit, so he was able just to 4-up Feel No Pain a lot of those wounds I did get through with the Dreadnoughts. He would turn them into mortal wounds, put them on that unit. He used that to nullify pretty much all the damage from the Dreadnoughts. It was brutal to play against, but awesome to see the interaction between all those units. Finally, the 2 Keepers of Secrets in the list made it hard to focus my big heavy hitters into the Fiends because I had to worry about taking out those Keepers of Secrets as well. It was a hard counter to the Dreadnoughts, but we did end up killing most of each other's units. It was just the Purge the Foe for more that lost me the game. Still, it was a great fun game and another learning experience against a different style of Chaos Daemons list. Now let's talk about the list and how I feel after going to the tournament. It was my first tournament with it. It performed like I thought it would. Against some lists like the 1000 Suns, where the Dreadnoughts could output enough damage and tank enough damage to overwhelm objectives and deny points while forcing the opponent to make mistakes. The Demons matchups were a bit rough for the list for 2 reasons. The lesser of the 2 is the list struggles to do efficient damage to the demon profiles that I had fought at the tournament. The biggest reason was me though. This list thrives on causing the opponent to make mistakes, to put threat potential on the opponent, and I failed to do that in those 2 games. And this was my fault for not being prepared for the demons, and no, we can't be expected to know every faction we may face, but with 0 experience into demons, I could not capitalize on the mistakes, and we all make mistakes, and nobody plays perfect. And this list really thrives on capitalizing on those mistakes, those holes people leave for those Telemons, and just the speed that people don't expect that these things can come flying at them. Now, would I change the list, and what would I change? I could, of course, put the 3 Telemons in for that Folger Piles list. There is a breakdown incoming for that list as well. The 2 Galatas, the 2nd Prosecutor unit, or even the Witchseeker unit could be switched out, maybe for some Virtus Praetors for those anti-infantry shooting, but I'm not quite ready to give up on this list yet though. I'd like to play for a few more games. I do like the Galatas into those certain targets, but it does seem against certain armies they're a bit easier to kill, where those Telemons would take a lot more punishment from the -1 to the damage. We will see how it continues to perform on the channel, but I do want to start playing some different detachments other than Solar Spearhead for those people that do not have those mass Dreadnoughts or just not interested in the Solar Spearhead detachment. I want to try some bikes, and I want to try a very Alaris heavy army in the Shield Host. And that's the RTT results. Let's move on to some final thoughts. Let's end with some final thoughts. Even though the matchups were not the best and I did the worst I've ever done at a tournament, I still had fun. And that was the key to having a good tournament. Even though the games were not going my way, I still had fun and stayed positive. I do have a pretty good sense of humor, so it is easier for me to laugh off a horrible game and just have some laughs over it. And like I said, I had a lot of fun, but next time we'll do a lot better and we'll be ready for those demons if we happen to match up with them. Subscribe for battle reports, list videos, and other Warhammer 40K content. And like always, thanks for watching, thanks for stopping by.